Before the internet, the easiest way to see live material and interviews from your favorite bands was usually through home video purchases. And back in the 1980s, that often meant videotape. Even the music videos that MTV wouldn't dare play were usually only on these tapes. So in this video, I'm going to go through my metal VHS collection. I'm going to show and discuss my favorites. I'm going to talk about some personal memories with these tapes as well, and also discuss whether or not they're on modern formats. Yep, we're doing something a little different today, but definitely stick around. Now, before I get to these tapes, I do want to mention the DVD bootleg market, because it's out there. People take VHS tapes and they transfer them to disc. Quality, of course, varies from tape to tape and disc to disc because of tape denigration. So keep that in mind if you're looking for these. There is, however, another option, and I'm going to be going through that at the end of this video, so definitely stick around for that. So with that, let's get to the tapes. First up is Venom with the Seventh Date of Hell, live at the Hammersmith Odeon, 1984. Runtime is 57 minutes. Amazing tape. I hadn't seen Venom before this, and in fact, I wouldn't see Venom live in the United States at all because I was living near Boston, and they were banned in Boston. They were banned in a lot of places in America. It was the Reagan era, of course, so there was that. So not seeing them back in 1984-85 was kind of a bummer. It was further rubbed in by a pen pal I had. I got an ad in the back of Kerrang. They had pen pal ads back then, and I hooked up with this girl, Annabelle. She lived in England, and she would tell me about all sorts of awesome Nawabum shows she'd be seeing in the clubs there. Meanwhile, in America, we have none of that. And she'd be like, Venom's on the telly tonight. And I'd be like, Venom's not on my television. So there was that as well. But I did have this videotape, so there you go. Track listing on this live tape goes as such: Leave Me in Hell, Countess Bathory, Die Hard, Seven Gates of Hell, Buried Alive, Don't Burn the Witch, In Nomine Satanas, Welcome to Hell, Warhead, Stand Up and Be Counted, and Bloodlust. Sadly, this title was only released on VHS and Betamax. To my knowledge, there is no DVD release, which is really unfortunate because it's a great tape. Next up is Overkill with the 1991 release of Videoscope. Great tape. I'm going to read a little bit of the blurb for you here. Overkill has risen from the streets and taken on the world with their aggressive lyrics and uncensored view of reality. Some say their music is purely obscene. Others say it's upfront and powerful. See and hear what really drives these poets of the underworld through unedited interviews, rehearsal footage, and early takes from their personal collection. So in addition to all of that, there are also 4 music videos on here for Elimination, Hello from the Gutter, and Union We Stand, and Horoscope, which is what they had at the time. So this videotape is obviously in support of their album Horoscope, a very big album for Overkill. Atlantic thought so too. That's probably why they did a home video release for them. Fans have really enjoyed this album over the decades. In fact, Overkill did a live recording of this entire album back in 2016, and they put it out on an album format in 2018. So the material's had some longevity, and fans still love it, which probably makes this videotape all the more interesting. So runtime is 45 minutes, and it was only available on VHS. Again, no DVD release of this, which is really a crime. Next up is the 1990 release of Danzig, the home video, in support of Danzig, the first album from Glenn Danzig, obviously ex-Misfits. Once again, Misfits, I guess you can put it. There are 4 music videos on here in support of that album. There's also a snippet of a track called When Death Had No Name, which ended up in full on the B-side of the Dirty Black Summer single in support of his third album, How the Gods Kill. Interesting enough about that album and that song in particular, in fact, here's my cassette of it, is that the song itself will fit on the blank space of side 2 of this tape. Perfectly, actually. I think 3 seconds, and then the leader happened right after the song ends. So one thing I had done is I had recorded it onto this actual tape, and then I went around telling my friends that it was a bonus track on a very special edition of How the Gods Kill. And my friends all bought it and looked in the stores, couldn't find the tape, drove them nuts. I had a good laugh. So there you go. There are also a couple instrumental tracks on this videotape. You would hear those in full as well on Glenn's solo project. The album is called Black Aria. It was all orchestral or symphonic or whatever you want to call it. His attempt at that, rather. Interesting album. Interesting, I guess is the way to put it. So the tape is only 40 minutes long. It's basically videos, much like the Overkill tape. I would have really preferred a live concert tape from Danzig at this point. Maybe the label wasn't interested in going into that so early in his solo career, but he did have the Misfits and Sam Hain. It could have been done. I would have preferred that. One thing I really love on the tape, though, are the interview segments. Eerie Von and Glenn Danzig both have this laughable, brooding demeanor about them. It's so staged and so hammy. It's kind of fun. It's fun to watch just for that, but also the classic footage as well. Good stuff. Sadly, this release only came out on VHS as well. No DVD again, which is kind of sad because it's fun. Next up is Dio with Sacred Heart, the video. Came out in 1986. This is a live show from Philadelphia on the Sacred Heart tour, obviously. Great show. A bit of a souvenir for me. I didn't go to the Philly show. I went to the one in Worcester, Mass. instead. But some good memories of the show, particularly that I was on quite a bit of LSD, which made the Dragons and the laser show rather interesting. Don't know if I would make that choice again in life, but at 17, you kind of throw caution to the wind. Yeah. The show also has a live version of the song Time to Burn, which wouldn't show up on any of the Dio studio LPs, but there is a studio version of it on the Intermission EP, if you're looking for that. So no Vivian Campbell on this one. He had already moved on. He went to Whitesnake, obviously, after Dio. Craig Goldie is on this tape. He and Ronnie likely met when they did the Hearing Aid sessions together. Hearing Aid, of course, was the charity event that Dio did. They did the album Stars with 10 zillion metal and hard rock guys. Go look at the video on YouTube if you haven't seen it yet. Interesting stuff. Craig Goldie sounds amazing on this. I like him as a guitarist for Dio. I think he works out pretty well. Of course, Craig Goldie went on to form Dio Disciples after Ronnie James Dio died. It's a cover band of sorts with ex-members, but also members of other bands. Interesting stuff. You should check it out. Dio Disciples. Why not? So the entire show is 1 hour long on the tape. If you are wanting a copy of it, it was reissued on DVD, finally, in 2013. Has a different title. I believe it's Finding the Sacred Heart Live in Philly, 1986. Also available on Amazon to rent or buy. So those are your options if you want to see this. Next up is Anthrax with Oidivnikufesin. N.F.V. This is a live show. The tape came out in 1988, but the show is from the Among the Living tour, my favorite era of the band. And I'm glad because I wouldn't have really wanted to show a State of Euphoria. I know there are people who love that album. I'm not a big fan of it. I saw that tour. They opened for Ozzy back in 88, and I'm just not really into that material. I think Among the Living is much stronger material, and glad to see it on this tape. As for the set list on this thing, I really could have done without I'm the Man. I think it's a waste of time, the entire track. I know people who love that one too, but man, it was just unbearable. Even back then, it was kind of unbearable. But the rest of the tracks on here are really great. And they end with Gung Ho. Why not, right? So 75-minute runtime on this title. And yes, it is available on DVD. It was released in 2008. So if you're looking for that, it's out there. Up next is a compilation a lot of people might not have heard of. This is Video Sheet Metal, Volume 1. There were only 2 volumes, to my knowledge, that were put out. This one came out in 1991. This is a promo version of the actual commercial release. I got this during my college radio days. It was sent to me but just because. There's an interesting selection of bands on here. You have Death Angel and Pantera, but you also have the Black Crowes and Soul Asylum. This is definitely the early 90s when heavy music was changing a bit. A lot of the alternative and grunge bands were kind of coming into the mix, and people were listening to both at the same time and making their own decisions, but the labels didn't know quite what to do back then, so they just threw all these bands on one tape, and hopefully you pick the ones you like. As I mentioned, I don't have the commercial release, but I do have a scan of the back of the book. I kind of wanted to read this to you because it's kind of funny. Here lies the debut edition of Video Sheet Metal. See Death Angel with an exclusive acoustic version of A Room with a View. Pantera, the Cowboys from Heck, share some attitude and their secret desire to be trickster. Chill with Atlanta's Southern Fried Black Crowes. Have a hoot with Soul Asylum down on the ranch and catch some rarely seen splatter on their video Artificial Heart. Then it's time for a coffin break, cause you'll need the caffeine to survive Anacrusis. If you need lessons on that, better pay attention to survival research laboratories for a little danger with your art. Sonic Youth kicks the heavy rubber jams as the coup de grace enter the after-school special zone. Trouble defends some Heavy Faith. Jane's Addiction gets at the uncensored Mountain Song. And Soundgarden's Chris Cornell does the 20th row breaststroke, whatever any of that means. So runtime on this is about an hour, and it was only released on VHS and Laserdisc. Sure, why not? Now, some of you might remember the Hard and Heavy series. They did quite a few of these. It's kind of a news magazine kind of series. That's their format. This tape is the Grindcore special from 1991. A lot of great bands on this one. In fact, I'm going to read you the blurb because I have to. It's amazing. Hard and Heavy presents the darkest and heaviest music and talent available in the universe at the moment. It's called Grindcore, and in the special edition of Hard and Heavy video magazine, you'll see and hear the bands that are making these new sounds, breaking these new grounds. It's loud, it's aggressive, it's extremely fast, but can also be slow. It's always brutally heavy. It's the most exciting and challenging underground music of the 90s so far. The artists themselves differ over exactly what grindcore is. Most of the bands have a philosophy that becomes the central theme of their lyrics, and this, along with the ins and outs of the scene itself, is the crux of this explosive long-form video. Needless to say, you won't be seeing this on TV. This tape is the real deal, the best of the grindcore scene, plus some newcomers to add to the fray. And of course I have to list off the bands: Napalm Death, Morbid Angel, Nocturnus, Paradise Lost, Prophecy of Doom, Godflesh, Cerebral Fix, Sonic Violence, Bolt Thrower, Vengeance Rising, Entombed, and Carcass. Great lineup. So music videos and live footage are most of the content on this tape. Also, there are interviews with some of the bands, but also with Dig Pearson of Earache Records. If you want to know a little bit about the history of Earache, he goes through a little bit of that on this tape. It's pretty interesting. It's a nice little snapshot of the early 90s grindcore scene. It's a great tape. So 87-minute runtime on this one. And yes, it was reissued on DVD in 2003. Keeping with the Hard and Heavy series, this is the Thrash Metal Speed Special. Came out the year before in 1990. Very interview heavy, I found. There are only 2 music videos on this, one for Megadeth and one for Danzig, because Danzig is thrash metal. Admittedly, the term thrash metal did get thrown around a lot in the late 80s and early 90s. A lot of people were included. Death metal bands were included. Grindcore was kind of included. Speed metal was always kind of sort of included, mostly because there's some overlap there. But yeah, pretty interesting. I'm going to read off some of the bands here, of course. Like I said, Megadeth's on here, but also Anthrax, Voivod, Overkill, Motorhead, Heathen, Exodus, Testament, Candlemass, Violence, Creator, Annihilator, Celtic Frost, Mordred, Lars Rocket, Danzig, Corner, Sacred Reich, MOD, Nuclear Assault, Forbidden, and for some reason, at the end of it, Black Sabbath. Why not? So 80-minute runtime and only available on VHS. Not much consistency with the Hard and Heavy series, I guess, on modern formats. But there you go. Of course, I couldn't do this special without mentioning this amazing tape. This is The Ultimate Revenge Combat Tour Live. Came out in 1985. Live material from Exodus and Slayer at Studio 54. Venom's on this tape too. Kind of, sort of. I'm going to go through that in a little bit. Definitely want to read you the blurb off this thing. It's equally as amazing as some of the other promotional blurbs on these tapes. So get ready for this. When you think of Studio 54, you think of the music loud, the beat heavy, the dancing frenetic. You do not think of Venom, Exodus, or Slayer. Dukes of heavy metal darkness all. But all the above were descriptions of those 3 bands on the magical evening of April 3rd, 1985, when Studio 54 changed its disco gloss to heavy metal sweat in The Ultimate Revenge. This is the story of that fateful night, from the crowds outside to the band's inside thoughts, from the energy and frantic pace on stage to the agitated madness of the crowd in the audience. Venom, from England, and one of the biggest selling independent bands in the world. Exodus, leaders of the San Francisco speed metal scene, and LA's legendary Slayer, a band that always lives up to its name when it comes to its audiences. All 3 together on this 60-minute epic of metal. Heavy metal is more than a form of music, it's a total sensory experience. Take part in this experience with the Combat Tour video live at Studio 54. LPs and tapes available on Combat Records. Now, of course, what that means is that the albums of these bands are available on LP and cassette. You can't get a soundtrack of The Ultimate Revenge, which is really unfortunate, because for The Ultimate Revenge Part 2, which they released in 1989, a whole other set of bands live, Dark Angel, Forbidden, Faith or Fear, and Raven were on that. You can get that soundtrack on CD. It is available. But sadly, they just didn't put one out for The Ultimate Revenge, the first one. So that's a little disappointing. So as I mentioned, Venom is kind of on this tape. There's an interview with Kronos and Abaddon. There's also a live clip from another videotape, and there's a music video as well. But their Studio 54 performance isn't there, and there are a couple different stories over why that is. The likelier story, of course, is that Mantis wasn't there. That's true in both cases. He had the chicken pox, I guess, and 3 days before they were supposed to fly to America, he just couldn't make it. They also didn't want to do the video without Mantis, kind of a thing, so they just didn't have it shot. They did have a couple other guitar players they were using at the time to fill in for Mantis, but the thing is that Mantis wanted to quit the band anyways by this time, and that's known. The other version of the story, of course, it's Kronos' version, and I think he does say it with a bit of tongue-in-cheek when he tells it in interviews, is that right after Slayer and Exodus, they had some money problems with the producers of the video, and they weren't getting paid up front, so Kronos and crew destroyed their video equipment. A lot of people say that's BS, but it's the other story, so take it as you will. I also want to go through the track listing on this thing because I think it's kind of important. There also is a Slayer interview on here. There's no Exodus interview, which is kind of interesting. It looks like 4 songs from each band. Exodus do Piranha, Metal Command, Exodus, and Strike of the Beast. And Slayer do Die by the Sword, The Antichrist, Hell Awaits, and Chemical Warfare. In fact, it's listed I Am the Antichrist on here, which is an interesting typo. The Venom live clip is for Countess Bathory. And the video for Venom is the one for Witching Hour. So with a runtime of only 60 minutes, you're really left wanting a lot more. I mean, 4 songs from each band. Could have gone a little bit longer. I would have preferred an interview with Exodus in there as well. That would have been kind of interesting, especially with Paul Bailoff, because he's the singer in the band at the time. We don't see a lot of him after he leaves the band. It's really a crime also that this isn't out on DVD. I don't know why that is. I don't know why Combat is hanging on to it and not putting that out, because I know a lot of people would kill for this. A DVD with extra footage would be amazing too. Is there more? We don't know. More interview stuff. It would just be really nice. I don't know why Combat's not doing it. If you know, let me know in the comments. But yeah, The Ultimate Revenge needs to be reissued. Definitely. It's funny when I talk to a lot of fans of this music from even back then, this tape kind of got by some folks. It really did. This is Sepultura with Under Siege live in Barcelona. Came out in 1991. Of course, it's a concert in support of the Arise album, which is, in my opinion, the greatest Sepultura album ever. This is also my favorite lineup of the band. The Cavalera brothers are here. Fantastic stuff. Setlist has tracks from 3 amazing albums, Schizophrenia, Beneath the Remains, and Arise. Definitely some of my favorites here, Desperate Cry, Love Inner Self. They end the tape with Orgasmatron, the Motorhead cover. Great stuff. Also in this tape, it's kind of interesting, is that there is a booklet, and it has a bunch of stuff. It has pictures of the band here and there, and it opens up a little bit to a nice little picture of the band. Yeah, you don't see these in videotapes very much back then. It's like you just open it up and a booklet falls out. Pretty interesting. Pretty cool, actually. So 54 minutes run time on this one. I would have liked it longer, of course. Who doesn't want more live Sepultura from the Arise era? This was on VHS and Laserdisc only. So again, no DVD release. Next up is the 1990 release of Gwar's live video called Live from Antarctica. This covers Gwar's first 2 albums, Hello and Scumdogs of the Universe. My favorite era of Gwar, in fact, my only preferred era of Gwar. The novelty for this band with me wore off pretty quickly, and I basically just didn't care about the rest of the stuff. You might like that later era stuff. Have at it. It's just not my bag. But I do love this era quite a bit. Of course, I gotta read you the blurb off this thing. You know it's gonna be good. Here we go. For the first time, you can enjoy an actual Gwar cannibalistic blood orgy, invading the privacy of your own home. Finally, you can experience a live performance in relative safety. Those too timid to attend a live Gwar show will appreciate that even though most viewers will suffer permanent brain damage, at least they won't get blood all over their trendy outfits. Laugh in abject horror as Odorous Urungus, the Sexecutioner, Slymenstro Hymen, and company rape, burn, and pillage their way into your heart. Join them in their never-ending quest for exploitational sex and gratuitous violence. Amazing. So still a fun band. Never saw them live outside of this videotape. And since Odorous Urungus is dead, I'm probably not going to do that going forward. So there you go with that. This was reissued on DVD in 2002 if you're interested in getting a copy of it. Runtime's about an hour. Again, typical runtime. Next up is Typo Negative with After Dark. This came out in 1998. It's interview footage, there's some live clips, there's some behind-the-scenes stuff. Also, Typo's brand of humor is shown throughout. If you read their lyrics, you know what their humor is. You know you want to see it. It's a pretty cool tape. Track listing is as such: Black Number 1, Little Miss Scarol, Going to Christian Woman, My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, Love You to Death, Cinnamon Girl, and then the Nail Driver version of Christian Woman again. So I got this tape as a promotional copy from Roadrunner. I was on their product servicing list back when I was doing reviews for print publications. I did that throughout the last half of the 90s and the first half of the 2000s, more or less. It is interesting it's on VHS, because in the late 90s, we're already starting to see DVD releases. So interesting they put it on a dying format, even though it's a beloved format too, which is why I'm doing this special. Of course, I say that, but soon after, in 2000, they did do a DVD release of this, so that's a format you can get it on. Tape is 1 hour in length. Of course, why would you expect anything less? Or more? Next up is a home video release for Testament. This is Seen Between the Lines, came out in 1991. It's music videos, it's live footage, it's interviews, all that good stuff. I have to read you the blurb off this thing because it is amazingly ridiculous. You're going to enjoy this. Something wicked your way whirls, twists, thunders, and roars. Testament, a menagerie of moods and motions. A full-on beast that begs for a piece of you. A machine that operates with maximum efficiency. Most of all, a band committed to playing out your most energetic, live metallic fantasy. Testament's live vortex has an insatiable appetite for you, and soon it won't be a case of anything other than complete fulfillment of your greatest expectations. Bowls in china shops, gremlins on mischievous overtime, you name it, this band provides it. The legacy of Testament will be with you long after the final encore. Wow. So very much done in a home movie style, has kind of a found footage vibe to it, a lot of camcorders, a lot of low light situations. It's pretty cool. You get a behind the scenes look at this band while they're on tour for their album Souls of Black, as I said. Great footage. You feel like you're kind of with the band backstage and touring with them, which is kind of fun. So runtime on this is a whopping 65 minutes. And if you're looking for this on DVD, it was released in 2005. Next up is a live performance home video from Napalm Death. This is Live Corruption, came out in 1990. 23 tracks on this, but you know, since it's Napalm Death, many of those are seconds long. Great show. There are some interview clips in here, but it's mostly a live show. Classic lineup of Napalm Death here. This is when Mitch Harris was in the band, also Jesse Pintado. By the way, rest in peace, Jesse. We know he's no longer with us. Mick Harris still on the drums before he went on to Scorn. So pretty good lineup of this band. Probably one of my favorites. So 55 minutes runtime on this tape, also only released on VHS and Laserdisc. Incredible. Next up is a music video compilation for Judas Priest. This is Fuel for Life, came out in 1986. Covers all the music videos they did from 1980 to 1986. Also, this is probably considered a video companion of sorts to their Priest live album, which came around the same time. So, interesting era for the band. I mean, this is obviously the Turbo era, which is a bit of a decisive era of divisive as well. So there you go. If you're interested in more about Turbo, I did do a video for my Do I Still Hate It show on that album. You should go check that out when you have a chance. And right away, I have to read the blurb. It's not as good as some of the others, but you'll enjoy it. Judas Priest is unquestionably one of the world's most celebrated heavy rock acts. Originally hailing from Birmingham, England, the group has become a major international force, with the success of strong albums like British Steel, Screaming for Vengeance, and the 1986 release Turbo. While many groups have only come to terms with the video world in recent years, Judas Priest's experience in this field dates back long before MTV and the other video networks that emerged onto the scene. This package contains an incredible selection of hit classic and rare Priest videos that make for compulsive viewing. I'm not sure how rare any of these are. Maybe they're talking about the point of entry stuff. Maybe that didn't get as much play back then, but there you go. So 39-minute runtime on this. It's only the music video, so there's that. It was released in VHS and Laserdisc only for the longest time, though it did come out on DVD in 2002 in Brazil, which is kind of interesting. And of course, you know I'm going to throw some Kiss in here. This is Animalized Live Uncensored from 1985. It is a live show, the Detroit show from 1984. Interesting story about that is that I have the bootleg. I've had it for a while. I have a lot of concert bootlegs on cassette tape. And I had bought this bootleg, and I wondered why the track listing seemed familiar and all of that. And then I realized I had already bought it on VHS. Now I had a crappy cassette version of the same show, but missing 5 tracks. So, lesson learned. Of course, I'm also going to read you the back blurb on the case. Gotta do it. With 11 cameras capturing every outrageous move, Kiss blasts their way through an explosive concert video. Shot at Cobo Hall in Detroit, the band is seen cranking their audience as high as their decibel-splitting amps. One Kiss anthem follows another, from Rock and Roll All Night to Lick It Up, featuring Heaven's on Fire and more from their Platinum Animalize LP. Next to Front Row Center, this is the ultimate Kiss experience, the state of their blistering, primal, modern metal art. I guess that's one way to explain them. As some might remember back then, this show was actually aired on MTV in a very censored version. They chopped a bunch of tracks out, probably for time constraints. That was the first time I saw this concert, and then I bought the videotape, and then I bought the bootleg. And we already went through that, so there you go. This one doesn't have a DVD release as far as I know. Back in the day, it came out on VHS, Laserdisc, and of course, Betamax. Of course, if I'm going to do a Kiss videotape, I'm going to do another Kiss videotape. This is Kiss Extreme Close-Up from 1992. It's an interview-based, documentary-style tape. Sadly, this is when Eric Carr died. They talk about him a bit in the video as well. It's a pretty cool video. I'm going to read the blurb, obviously. Here it is, straight from us, straight to you. The history, the facts, and the stories. You want vintage concert footage and videos? Say no more. They're here too. Take a trip with us from the very beginning and live our revenge with us right now. Sit back, fasten your seatbelts, and enjoy the ride. In addition to the interview segments with the 4 members, you also get some music videos, and you get some live footage. The live footage pulled from the Kiss vaults, no doubt. Some of these clips that you see, you'd have whole live shows on the Kissology DVD box sets that came out much later on. One thing I noticed that was pretty cool is that they didn't include the music videos that they had put on a previous home video. That would be Kiss Exposed back in 1987. So if you have that tape and this tape, you have all the Kiss videos up to that point without any real overlap. So runtime is 90 minutes, which is a respectable length for a documentary of sorts for this band. This came out on VHS and Laserdisc back when it first came out. Didn't have a DVD release on its own, but then in 2004, I believe, it was paired up with Kiss Confidential. So you get those 2 tapes or presentations or specials, whatever you want to call them, on one DVD, which is pretty cool. And those are my metal VHS collection favorites. If you're wanting to see some of these for yourself and you can't have the physical formats, you should definitely check out some links on YouTube. In fact, I put together a list of those links, put them in the description of this video. You should check those out, preferably sooner than later because, you know, links break over time. Definitely check those out. Of course, I'm willing to bet that some of you have memories with these tapes when they first came out. Maybe you still watch them. Maybe you have a VCR that still works, or maybe you got the DVD reissues. Definitely let me know your memories back then as opposed to now, and anything else about them in the comments below. Of course, this is when I say like, subscribe, and share. 3 great ways to support the Accusation Network. I otherwise do metal vinyl collecting videos. This was a little bit of a departure, but that's what I typically do. If you're interested in that, definitely like, subscribe, and share, as I said, and you will make me happy. So thanks for watching, and ever forward.